Hey guys, Cloud here. So for today's video, I'm going to be discussing why despite Acheron's restrictiveness in terms of team building and her teammates necessity for their, specific icons, all players, free to play and even newer players should consider getting an Acheron and try to pull for her signature icon. I'll be talking about the reasons why she is considered restricted by many, also provide reasons that despite those problems, you should be pulling for Acheron, and I will include one major reason why you should not pull for her near the end of this video. So without further ado, let me out. So first, let's talk briefly about Acheron's kit and why people should just pull based on her kit, right? She's a lightning type nihility unit that relies on getting to her ultimate that does unga bunga damage. Her ultimate is completely unique in the sense that it does not use energy. So please don't break your Acheron with energy rope. To get to her ultimate, you need 9 stacks to activate it, and to get those stacks, you need to apply debuff from your allies, right? What makes her strong is that these debuffs can be varied and can range from different sources. Those that can come from allies, enemies that die and inflict debuffs on their own allies. Some Lycones apply debuffs. Weakness break counts as a debuff, and even MOC turbulence or even the buffs from pure fiction can apply those debuffs. Regardless, the main and reliable ways to get Acheron stack and keep it going is through her skill and your allies applying those debuffs, right? There's a trace in Acheron's kit that heavily incentivizes you in running 2 nihility units. The reward from running 2 of them is that you get a separate damage bonus multiplier. And this separate damage bonus multiplier is important because it's just separate from other multipliers, so it's multiplicative. It's multiplicative. So running 2 is just a flat, let's just say 60% damage bonus increase on all basic attack skill and ultimate. So just take that into consideration, right? She has like a harmony trace in her kit. So just from her kit description, there are potential weaknesses that people may find, right? Some people doom post about it. The most common concern among all of them has to do with her restrictiveness, and I'll say that it is a kind of a fair critique, right? Not every player will have another 5-star nihility unit around, such as Silver Wolf, Kafka, and Black Swan. Not every player will have those specific LCs that apply debuffs, such as Resolution Pearls and Trend of the Universal Market. And not everybody will have those debuffers at like 160 speed. So this restrictiveness comes from various reasons that I'll tackle on. Before tackling on some of these reasons, I'll just say that this video has some emphasis towards players that are new to the game or are free to play or are even in the mid game, right? Whatever is the definition of optimal or even viable, these are 2 different words by the way, is completely different for every other player. You don't need Acheron at her most optimal or viable team for MOC 11 and 12 to clear the story content or clear like MOC 6 and 7. So that's all I have to say. So let's move to one of Acheron's weaknesses, and it is her backloaded nature of damage. She's kind of similar to both Argenti and Jingliu. Some even call her like Lightning Argenti because most of her damage will come from the ultimate. However, it's not that true. You should still level up her skill, by the way. It still does respectable amounts of damage. For the newer players, I will say that Acheron's floor might as well just be the same as other units except for Jingliu. And we'll talk about Jingliu later. So for Acheron, if you want to keep getting your ultimates, it would require your Acheron and your other debuff applying units to be fast, at least 134 speed. Because that's the universally agreed upon speed threshold that is, suitable for MOC. Thus, this requires your supports your nihility units such as Pella and Goinaifen to run speed boots, while also having a decent amount of, EHR to apply those debuffs, because without getting to that threshold, your Acheron may be stuck with 1 ult per cycle, or worse, you may not even get an Acheron ult in your future cycles, right? Thus lessening the amount of damage you could deal. I know for the sweaty players like myself, the speed threshold that is a must for Acheron teammates to get to her ult faster and in a more reliable manner is having 160 speed on both of your debuff applying units, while Acheron has attack boots to just deal more damage. But that's gonna be for a future video. Now let's move on to another problem that is somewhat related to her backloaded damage, is that Acheron's Lycone options are very, very limited and not synergistic with her. And to add to this, her signature Lycone kind of feels very let's just say, completely different from other signature Lycons, right? So to start off, Acheron is a crit nihility DPS, and the nihility Lycons don't have anything to do with crit rate, crit damage. Some of them are just weird for Acheron, such as one of them making you build effect hit rate just to get more attack, and they don't really have that much synergy with Acheron. It's like, if you're running your standard nihility Lycons on Acheron, her ultimate is like gonna do worse than Yangxing's. The only good one is probably like Good Night Sleep Well, and that's on Nagacha. And so some players may not get it on S5. Hell, some players may even hard pity on like Acheron's Lycon and not get even a single copy of Good Night Sleep Well. So there is that to consider, right? For people that are going to pull for Acheron without her signature Lycon, I would ask for you to lower your expectations because Acheron's ceiling is dependent on whether you have her signature Lycon or not. Some YouTubers put a difference from Acheron's signature Lycon from Good Night Sleep Well at S5 to be 15%, which is considered to be the standard. However, some others have said it's 30%. And I've even seen, I think, a YouTuber say it's around 50 or 60%. So you kinda know how big of a gap 50 to 60% is from like an S5 gacha cone, right? So what makes Acheron Sig LC much appealing and quite different from others DPS signature Lycon is the fact that it has to do with her ultimate's rotation. Acheron's signature Lycon applies a debuff, so this makes Acheron get an extra stack. It gets to her ult quicker and far more reliably. So this signature Lycon is key for having like 2 ultimates in every cycle, like guaranteed. So imagine if Jingliu's signature Lycon allows you to get another 10 stack Lightning Lord for free, or Argenti's signature Lycon allows you to get another enhanced ultimate every cycle for free. That just makes it insane. So to summarize, what adds to the restrictiveness concern to Acheron's kit is the fact that her LC options for nihility units are just limited since they don't work well with her. Some do, but it's like kinda eh. And that to add on to this, her signature Lycon just feels quite necessary. So moving on, let's talk about her teammate options. So as of right now, the only known debuffers that only applies debuffs and contributes damage to Acheron's ult damage is Pella, right? AoE Death Shred is very well suited with Acheron's AoE ultimate, and she's on Acheron's banner, which is pretty good for free to play, especially if you don't have her yet. The other one is Silverwolf, which contributes a lot of, large defense shred against the boss. There's also Black Swan, which contributes defense shred. There's Kafka. There's some calcs that use 160 speed Kafka because Kafka can honestly has like 3 actions that applies debuff as long as you have their signature Lycon, but that's quite expensive, right? Your other 4-star options would be dot teammates such as Gunaifen, Luca, and Sampo. I think if you were to ask me to rank all the 3, Gunaifen would be at the top because she can reapply those debuffs and it's damage received, so it works well with Acheron's ultimate. Luca has vulnerability debuff, but majority of the time it kind of forces SP negativity since Luca has to use his skill every now and then. And for Sampo, while he may not have the same problem as Luca since he can just basic attack, the problem is that your Acheron screenshot damage may not look good. So there's little options for 5-star nihility. But you can run her with harmony units such as not Tingyun for sure, but you can run her with who's that again? Bronya. You can even run her with Ruan Main or even Sparkle, right? Sure, you're not going to max out the Trace, which is like a free 60% damage separate multiplier. But let's just say that you only need to max that out if you are planning to aim for 0 to 1 cycle. Surely in 3 to 5 cycles, a bricked Acheron would still be able to clear it. So that's all I have to say about her restrictiveness. There's probably other reasons that I haven't listed that really contributes to Acheron's restrictiveness and necessity for like other things. But moving on, this will be talking about why you should still pull for Acheron despite those, her restrictive nature, her weaknesses, and others. So, number 1, the secret value of Acheron is her kit. She's quite different from other DPS. Acheron enables an entirely new playstyle that is separate from your traditional hyper carry or DOT. Though you can technically still call it hyper carry since Acheron is the main damage dealer, so there's kinda that, but she's she stems away from the usual, the usual traditional hyper carry such as Harmony units, but instead you use your DOT, not on the DOT teammates, your Nihility units, right? So finally, you can now be able to use Pella, who else, Silver Wolf, and whatever Nihility units you have in stack there that you haven't built up, right? And even if you don't have those units, she gets empowered even more as Nihility units can come around, right? Another big benefit of Acheron is that, let's say that you currently have some of the Harmony units, she's not gonna steal any of them at all. Especially like Tingyun. I would say that unless if you're aiming for 0 cycle showcases, you may then remove Sustain for either Sparkle or Bronya. So a lot of people don't really recommend Ruan Mei though, because she doesn't advance forward your Acheron to get those stats quickly, and if she even though she has universal weakness break, just seeing it from the different showcases, her break damage isn't really that much anyways. It's just better to run Sparkle or Bronya. But from sustain teams wise, so I'm just saying, Acheron's playstyle is quite different from other DPS, except maybe for, who was that guy again? Dr. Ratio, because Dr. Ratio still kinda needs Nihility units, at least one Nihility unit to inflict a debuff. Now moving on to the next reason, you don't really need her signature Lycone, just like you don't really need any other unit's signature Lycone or even those specific 5-star units, right? You don't really need them to clear Memory of Chaos or anything like that. There's already been people who have been clearing Memory of Chaos with only like 4-star units, so take that into consideration, right? I would say Acheron, as long as with Acheron you're able to get, clear respectfully with within 10 cycles, then you're good to go. You got all the max rewards, and if you're a newer player or you're in the mid game right now, you shouldn't be concerning yourself at all with Memory of Chaos 7 and above at all. So that's all I have to say. You don't really need her signature Lycone. And as you progress through the game, you realize that you'll get better relics anyway. So I'm just saying you don't need her signature Lycone at all to clear the end game content, since this game is extremely easy. So now let's move on to the reasons, or 1 to 2 reasons why you should not pull for her. If you want a smoother playing experience, especially if you are a new player and you are not pulling for Acheron signature Lycone at all, then by all means pull for the current units, right? Pull for Jingliu or pull for Sparkle. Because without signature Lycone in mind, Jingliu has the strongest floor in the game. No one can ignore the 50 crit rate and her free crit damage. And the current Harmony units work best with her now, like Tingyun, Bronya, Ruan Mei, and even some Nihility units still work with her. I think only one Nihility unit, and it's Pella. You can still technically run Silver Wolf. I mean, yes, you can. And you can still run Silver Wolf with her if you really want to brute force content like Ice Weakness on enemy. So, because, Jingliu is the easiest to build unit at all. She doesn't need as much of the other units. Basically, she can work with every other unit in the game, right? You can make her into duo DPS, traditional hyper carry. The only one is not allowed for her is DOT, but that's kind of just the point, right? So if you want smoother playing experience and you're not considering for Acheron's signature Lycone, then by all means pull for Jingliu. But I will say that Acheron is probably has the strongest ceiling in the game with signature Lycone and the current teammate roster that she possibly has if you can attain them, right? Such as 160 speed on Silver Wolf, Pella, so you can activate 2-turn ults every single time. You have Sparkle to enable Acheron to get more of her stacks and get free crit damage. So I'm just saying, if you want the smoothest 0 cycles or the highest ceiling in the game, Acheron with her signature Lycone is kind of what you really want, right? I'm just saying that. So that's kind of it for this video. Personally, I'm gonna pull for both Acheron and her signature Lycone, even if I have 2 5-star lightning DPS. Type in the comments if you are pulling for her and her signature Lycone. If you are, hopefully your pulls do well. And if you don't pull for Acheron, then by all means that's perfectly fine. You don't need her to, finish the story in this game or finish the highest floor in Memory of Chaos. That's all I have to say. Make sure to leave a like, share, and probably drop a sub if you want to. And that's all. Bye.